Heart of Shadow, the love story of Harguth and Eclipse. Harguth was a young orc, strong and proud, with a fierce determination that burned in his eyes. He was the son of Harguth, the shaman of Tempest, and had been trained from a young age in the ways of the hunt. Harguth had a tall and muscular build, standing at about 6 feet in height. His skin was a deep shade of green and he had sharp, pointed teeth. His eyes were a piercing yellow and he had long, black hair that was tied back in a ponytail. He wore a simple tunic made of rough, durable fabric, with a belt and boots to match. On his belt, he carried a hunting knife and a quiver of arrows. Harguth was known for his strength and endurance, as well as his skill with a bow and arrow. He was a fierce and formidable hunter, respected by his tribe and feared by his enemies. He lived in a small village on the Typhoon shore, surrounded by the rugged beauty of the mountains and the sea. His days were filled with training, hunting, and preparing for the day when he would take his place as a leader among his people. Despite his fierce nature, Harguth was a kind and compassionate soul, always ready to lend a helping hand to those in need. He was respected and admired by his fellow orcs, and his future seemed bright and full of promise. But little did he know that his destiny would soon be forever changed by a chance encounter on the hunt he was about to take. Harguth prowled through the dense forests of the Shadow Heights, his senses heightened as he searched for his elusive quarry. He had been tracking the silver horn antelope for days, and he was determined to bring it down. He moved silently through the underbrush, his keen eyes and ears alert for any sign of the beast. He could feel it close by, sense its presence in the rustling of the leaves and the snap of a twig. He drew his bow and arrow, steadying his aim as he waited for the perfect moment to strike. And then, in a blur of motion, the antelope burst from the brush, its horns gleaming in the sunlight. Harguth released his arrow, and with a satisfying thunk, it found its mark, bringing the beast down in a single shot. He approached his quarry with a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that he had proven his skills as a hunter. As he followed the trail, he suddenly caught sight of something that stopped him in his tracks. There, in a clearing ahead, was a young woman unlike any he had ever seen before. She was tall and slender, with long, flowing hair that shone like silver in the sunlight. Her skin was fair and smooth, and her eyes sparkled like diamonds. She wore a simple white gown that seemed to glow with an otherworldly radiance, and in her hand she held a staff adorned with intricate carvings. Harguth was struck by her beauty, and he couldn't help but stare. He had never seen anyone like her before, and he was immediately drawn to her. As he watched, she turned and looked directly at him, and their eyes met. In that moment, Harguth knew that his life would never be the same again. Harguth stood at a distance, his eyes fixed on the slender figure of the girl. She was a moon druid, her long hair cascading down her back like a waterfall of silver. She was beautiful, and Harguth couldn't help but be drawn to her. But before he could approach, the girl was attacked by a ferocious beast. It was a giant antelope-like creature, its horns gleaming in the sunlight as it charged towards the girl. Harguth knew he had to act fast. He quickly notched an arrow to his bow and let it fly, hitting the beast square in the chest. It let out a fierce roar of pain as it fell to the ground. Harguth rushed towards the girl, his heart racing with fear and concern. As he reached her, he saw that the beast had managed to slash her arm with its horns. Blood seeped from the wound, staining her skin and clothes. Harguth quickly tore a strip of cloth from his own shirt and wrapped it around the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "Are you okay?" he asked the girl, his voice filled with worry. She looked up at him with grateful eyes and nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Eclipse, hello. My name is Eclipse. I'll soon be a moon druid. Who are you?" "Harguth, I am Harguth, son of Harguth, the shaman of Tempest. And you, Eclipse, are the most beautiful thing I have ever laid eyes on." "Eclipse, thank you. You're very handsome as well." "Harguth, what are you doing out here all alone?" "Eclipse, I was collecting herbs for a potion. And then I was attacked by that beast. I thought I was going to die." "Harguth, but I was there to protect you. You are safe now." "Eclipse, thank you for saving me. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't there." "Harguth, it was my pleasure. I would do anything to keep you safe." Harguth couldn't help but feel a surge of protectiveness towards her. He vowed to stay by her side and keep her safe from harm. Harguth and Eclipse spent 2 days in the forest, tending to each other's wounds and getting to know each other. Harguth and Eclipse sat by the fire, watching the flames dance and flicker. They had been talking for hours, getting to know each other and sharing their stories. Harguth told Eclipse about life in his Orcish tribe and how he had always felt a little bit different, like he didn't quite fit in. Eclipse listened intently, her eyes shining with understanding. "I know how you feel," she said softly. "I've always felt a little bit out of place too. I'm a moon druid, and our ways are a bit different from those of other druidic sects. It can be tough to find a place where you truly belong." Harguth nodded. "I understand. It's tough to be different, but it's also what makes us special." Eclipse smiled. "I agree. And I think that's one of the things I like most about you, Harguth. You're different, and you embrace it. You don't try to be anyone else." Harguth grinned. "Well, I have to admit, I like you too, Eclipse. You're kind and compassionate, and you have this way of seeing the world that's just so different from anyone else I've met." The two of them sat in silence for a moment, lost in their own thoughts. Then Harguth spoke up. "I know this might sound crazy, but I think I'm falling in love with you, Eclipse." Eclipse's eyes widened in surprise, but then she smiled. "I think I'm falling in love with you too, Harguth." The two of them sat by the fire, lost in each other's eyes and completely unaware of the world around them. They knew that their love was forbidden, that their differences might one day tear them apart, but in that moment, all they cared about was each other. They had found a place where they truly belonged, and they were determined to hold on to it for as long as they could. As the sun set over the shadow heights, Harguth and Eclipse lay entwined in each other's arms, their bodies and hearts united in a deep and passionate love. The Orcish warrior's strong arms held the delicate moon druid close, his rough hands caressing her smooth skin as they explored each other's bodies. Eclipse's eyes closed in ecstasy as Harguth's lips found hers, his long tongue dancing with hers as their lovemaking reached a fever pitch. She wrapped her arms around him, pulling him closer as they lost themselves in the intensity of their passion. As they moved together, their love flowed between them like a living, breathing thing, fueling their desire and deepening their connection. In that moment, they knew that they were meant to be together forever, united in love and bound by the magic of the night. Despite their different backgrounds, they had quickly realized they had a deep connection and decided to return to Harguth's village together. When they arrived, they were met with cold stares and whispers from the members of Harguth's Orcish tribe. It was clear that they disapproved of the couple being together, but they said nothing, instead choosing to keep their feelings to themselves. Despite the tension, Harguth and Eclipse were determined to be together and refused to let the opinions of others stand in their way. They continued to spend time together, hoping that eventually their love would be accepted by the tribe. It was a typical day in the Orcish village when the incident occurred. Eclipse, the beautiful young moon druid, had been living with Harguth's tribe for several months now, and had made some friends among the orcs. However, not everyone was accepting of her presence. As Eclipse walked through the village, she couldn't help but overhear the whispers and snickers of some of the orcs as they passed by. They called her names, laughed at her human heritage, and made fun of her druidic abilities. Eclipse tried to ignore them, but it was difficult. She knew that some orcs held a deep-seated prejudice against humans and moon druids, and it was clear that she was not welcome in the tribe. On that day, while Eclipse was walking through the village, a group of orcs confronted her and started taunting her because of her human and moon druid heritage. They tore her clothes and threw manure on her, showing their contempt and hatred towards her. Despite her pleas for them to stop, they continued their cruel actions, causing Eclipse to feel humiliated and degraded. Harguth heard Eclipse's cries for help and ran as fast as he could towards the sound. When he arrived at the scene, he saw a group of orcs taunting and harassing Eclipse, who was cowering in fear. Harguth's blood boiled with rage as he saw the orcs tearing at Eclipse's clothes and throwing manure on her. Without hesitation, he charged at the orcs and fought them off, protecting Eclipse with all his might. When the fight was over, Harguth rushed to Eclipse's side and wrapped her in his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. Eclipse nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come." Harguth held her tightly, his heart heavy with sorrow and anger. "I will always protect you, Eclipse," he vowed. "No one will ever harm you again, I promise." As Harguth struggled with the challenges and conflicts caused by his relationship with Eclipse, he turned to Tempest, the storm elemental deity, for help and advice. Tempest was a powerful and revered deity, known for his strength and wisdom, and Harguth hoped that he would be able to provide the guidance and support that he needed. Harguth prayed to Tempest, pouring out his heart and asking for wisdom. He begged the deity to help him find a way to make his relationship with Eclipse work, and to overcome the barriers that stood in their way. To Harguth's surprise, Tempest answered his prayers, and appeared to him in a vision. The deity spoke to Harguth, offering him words of wisdom and encouragement, and telling him to have faith and trust in his own strength and that of his love for Eclipse. "Harguth, my son," Tempest said, his voice thundering through the vision. "Do not let the narrow-mindedness of others cloud your judgment. Your love for Eclipse is strong and pure, and it is a bond that should not be broken by the petty prejudices of others. I understand your fear and uncertainty," the deity continued. "But do not let that hold you back. Take control of your own destiny and follow your heart. Together, you and Eclipse can overcome any obstacle and create a life filled with love and happiness. Have faith, Harguth," Tempest concluded, his voice softening. "And trust in the power of your love. It will guide you through even the darkest of times." Harguth took the deity's words to heart, and with a renewed sense of determination, he vowed to fight for his love and to create a life with Eclipse, no matter what the world might throw their way. As Harguth and Eclipse's love continued to grow and flourish, Harguth's father, the shaman of Tempest, worried about his son's future. He knew that Harguth's relationship with Eclipse would not be accepted in their tribe, and he feared that his son was forsaking his orcish heritage and traditions by being with her. The shaman of Tempest tried to talk to Harguth the son about his concerns, but his son was stubborn and refused to listen. He was deeply in love with Eclipse, and was determined to be with her no matter what anyone else thought. The shaman knew that he had to respect his son's choices and let him live his own life, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Harguth was making a grave mistake. He prayed to Tempest for guidance and help, hoping that the deity would give him the wisdom and strength to accept his son's choices, but the deity remained silent. As Harguth and Eclipse's love for each other grew, so did the tension and conflict within the tribe. Feeling lost and unsure of what to do, Harguth again turned to Tempest. The storm elemental deity, who had always been a protector and mentor to Harguth, listened to his plight and offered a solution. The deity revealed to Harguth that there was a place beyond the Shadow Heights, a place where he and Eclipse could start a new life together, free from the judgment and animosity of their respective communities. With Tempest's guidance, Harguth and Eclipse made the difficult decision to leave the village and embark on a journey to this new land. It was a perilous journey, filled with danger and uncertainty, but the couple remained strong and determined. Soon, the members of the Orcish tribe gathered in the central meeting place, a large open area surrounded by huts. Harguth the shaman of Tempest stood before them, his face twisted with anger and disappointment. As Harguth, the shaman of Tempest, stood before his tribe, he could feel the anger and frustration boiling within him. "How could my own son turn his back on the tribe and run off with that moon druid girl?" he shouted. The members of the tribe looked at each other nervously, none of them daring to speak out against their leader. "We must send a party to track them down and bring them back," Harguth continued, his voice echoing through the village. "They must understand that they cannot simply abandon their responsibilities and obligations to the tribe." There were murmurs of agreement from the gathered orcs, but one brave member spoke up. "But Harguth, is it not possible that they have found love and happiness together?" Harguth's eyes narrowed as he glared at the orc who had dared to challenge him. "Love is a weakness, a distraction from our duty to the tribe. They must be made to see that their place is here, with us." There was a murmur of agreement from the assembled orcs, and several volunteers stepped forward, eager to join the search party. Harguth nodded his approval and selected the strongest and most skilled hunters to join him. With a fierce determination, Harguth sent a party of trackers to search for Harguth and Eclipse, determined to bring them back to the village and make them see the error of their ways. As they set out on their journey, Harguth was filled with a fierce desire to bring his son back to the fold. He knew that Harguth must be made to see the error of his ways, and he was determined to do whatever it takes to achieve this goal. The party of trackers searched far and wide for Harguth and Eclipse, vowing to bring them back to the tribe. They followed their trail through the mountains and forests, always one step behind. Finally, they caught up to the couple in a clearing in the Shadow Heights. Harguth and Eclipse were caught off guard by the sudden appearance of the trackers, and a tense standoff ensued. Harguth's father, Harguth the Shaman of Tempest, confronted his son, demanding that he come back to the tribe and renounce his love for Eclipse. But Harguth refused to back down, standing up for his love for Eclipse and his own freedom to choose his own path. Harguth, father, I understand that you are upset, but I love Eclipse and she makes me happy. I cannot return to the tribe and leave her behind. Harguth the Shaman, you are my son, Harguth. You have a duty to the tribe and to me. You cannot throw away everything we have built for the sake of this girl. Harguth, I'm sorry, father, but I cannot turn my back on my heart. Eclipse is a part of me now. I will not leave her. Harguth the Shaman, then you leave me no choice. I must protect the honor of the tribe and bring you back by force. Harguth, I will not go willingly, father. I will fight for my love. Harguth the Shaman, then let us settle this for good. May the strongest will prevail. In the end, after all was said, the confrontation turned violent, with Harguth and his father locked in a fierce knife fight. The fight between Harguth and his father was intense and brutal. Both orcs were skilled fighters, and the clash of their weapons echoed through the forest. Harguth fought with all his might, determined to protect Eclipse and their love. However, his father was a seasoned warrior and had the advantage of age and experience. As they fought, Harguth's father taunted him, trying to goad him into making a mistake. Harguth remained focused and tried to find an opening, but his father was too strong. In a moment of desperation, Harguth lunged forward, trying to catch his father off guard. But his father was ready for the attack and easily sidestepped, sending Harguth stumbling past him. As Harguth tried to regain his footing, his father seized the opportunity and struck, plunging the knife deep into Harguth's heart. Harguth's eyes went wide with shock and pain as he fell to the ground, his life slipping away. His father stood over him, panting heavily and staring down at his son's body with a mixture of anger and sadness. The fight was over, and Harguth was dead. Despite Harguth's skill and determination, he was ultimately no match for his father's strength and experience. Harguth was killed in the fight, a knife plunged into his heart. Eclipse was left alone in the forest and the trackers returned to the village with the tragic news. In the wake of Harguth's death, Eclipse was heartbroken and felt lost and alone. She knew that she could never replace him or find another love like his, and she struggled to come to terms with her grief. As she wandered through the forests and mountains, she found herself drawn to the Shrine of Tempest, seeking solace and guidance from the storm elemental deity. She knew that Harguth had always revered Tempest, and she hoped that by seeking the deity's guidance, she might find a way to honor her love's memory and find her own path forward. Eclipse spent many days and nights at the shrine, praying and meditating, and gradually, she began to find peace and clarity. She realized that although Harguth was no longer with her in body, his spirit was always with her, and she vowed to honor his memory by living her life to the fullest and following her own path, especially now that she was carrying his child. Inspired by her love for Harguth and her own sense of purpose, Eclipse left the shrine and set out on a new journey, determined to make a difference in the world and to honor the memory of the orc boy she had loved with all her heart. So, the tragic love story between the young orc boy and the moon druid girl came to a close.